Touch with our reporter who's at the Christian Revival Church in Silver Lakes, Pretoria. Ofentse, what's happening where you are right now with regards to the staff memorial for Minister Edna Molewa?
Thank you very much, Desiree. As you mentioned, we're coming to you live from the Christian Revival Church in Silver Lakes on the east of Pretoria, where there's actually a hive of activity as preparations are actually underway for the memorial service of staff of the Department of Environmental Affairs to pay their last respects to the Minister Edna Molewa. As you remember, she succumbed to a severe pneumonia upon her return trip from China. But joining me right now is the late minister's spokesperson, Mr. Albimodise, who's actually going to elaborate a bit further on how the mood has been in the Environmental Affairs offices following the passing this past Saturday. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Albi. If you can just elaborate on what the mood has been like. It must have been a heavy and a depressing week for your staff, considering that for the past 8 years you've been with a single minister.
Ofentse, good morning, and a very good morning to your viewers as well. It's been a very somber mood. The minister has been part of the department for, as you correctly pointed out, solid 8 years. She is part of the department. She understands the work of the department, but in the overall, she's been the pillar of support and strength in terms of making sure that our legislative program, our programs in terms of citizen-centric service delivery programs, whether it's EPWP or all of these different programs, that those are achieved and that in the ultimate objective, jobs are created. So she's been a very central part of ensuring that South Africa continues to live in harmony with the environment.
And we understand that this is a memorial service for the staff of the Environmental Affairs. What is expected to transpire today?
Ofentse, as the President announced, the Minister has been accorded the official funeral by the state, Category 1, which effectively means the state takes over and runs with the operations of the funeral. And therefore, the state will host an official funeral next week on the 3rd, with the funeral itself set for the 6th. But because Minister was also part of the broader environment portfolio, we thought it prudent that we today invite staff members and extend an invitation as well to some of the key stakeholders within the environment portfolio who've worked with Minister at legislative level, who've worked with Minister in terms of ensuring that the programs of government reach even the most peripheral zones of this country. So today is a day where we're going to reflect on her life with staff members, reflect on her life with stakeholders, but also teach our hearts once again to continue loving her and teach our ears to understand that they will never hear her voice again, and talk to our hearts, our eyes as well, and say to our eyes, that lady that you used to see every now and then, you will not see her anymore. So it's going to be a moment of reflection. We're going to celebrate her life. We're going to, of course, it's going to be a painful environment, because when you meet someone who comes into your space professionally, who becomes part of the architecture of the department, you don't plan or budget for a day like this. And for all of us, and I suppose for the whole country and for the global community, it's going to be a somber moment. It's going to be a moment where we all reflect on her life, but also celebrate her successes and allow God to really soothe our hearts as we reflect on her life.
And there were a lot of projects that she was actually spearheading, like the relocation of the rhino from high-risk areas to low-risk areas, and also the compliance of the CITES thingy of trying to detect the flora and fauna which has actually been, sold illegally. How are you going to handle some of these outstanding programs without the minister spearheading them?
Ofentse, on this day in 2016, we were in Sandton hosting the CITES COP17. Today being Tourism Day, our theme on that day in 2016, we were talking about how we get communities to be part of conservation. And Minister on this particular day mentioned the fact that it's important for tourism, for conservation, to include ordinary people, because if you do not do that, you are not going to be able to deal with rhino poaching. So at the heart of our program, it was a citizen-centric and people-friendly implementation program that recognizes that. And of course, you're right. I mean, she believed strongly that government of South Africa, given its successful track record, it needs to share its experience with other countries. Hence, just about 3 months ago, we translocated some of the rhino to Chad, and she was in charge of making sure that the program was executed with aplomb, and that ultimately rhinos that arrive in Chad are put in a safe environment to allow them to replenish their stock in Chad. So, and in the main, her program also has included, among others, working together with communities adjacent to the parks, because she was of the strong view that ultimately government must include ordinary people in its conservation track record. So, and I think the recent statistics that we released of rhino poaching are indicative of her proactive, but also the ultimate and her result-driven approach. Over the past 3-4 years, we've been seeing a drop in terms of the rhino poach in South Africa. All of those are tales and nuggets of information that tells you a lot about the minister she was, about the human being she was, but ultimately about the South African that she was, and in the main, the woman of character, the woman of integrity, the woman who led us with aplomb and led from the front.
And what would be your message of condolences to your staff, since you've worked with the minister for such a long time? I'm sure they would want a message of comfort.
We are here to celebrate her life. We are allowed to cry. We are allowed to weep now and then. We are allowed to laugh at some of the jokes she would crack. We should actually reflect on her life. We should celebrate her life, but ultimately, Ofentse, we need to also allow her to go to be with her father.
Thank you very much. That was Albi Modise, the spokesperson of the late Environmental Affairs Minister Edna Molewa, actually saying today's date is about celebrating the life and the contributions made by the late Minister of Environmental Affairs. And with that, it's back to studio.
Thanks a lot there to Ofentse Setimo. That's one of the events we'll be tracking this morning.